An ousted New York Times editor says it was a mistake to cave to the woke mob. James Bennett breaking his silence after he was forced to resign for greenlighting an op-ed by Republican Senator Tom Cotton, which called for sending in troops to quell the Black Lives Matter riots of 2020. Bennett says the liberal paper badly wants to welcome the left, and his boss, quote, blew the opportunity to make clear that the New York Times doesn't exist just to tell progressives how progressives should view reality. That was a huge mistake and a missed opportunity for him to show real strength. That happening as trust in the media is near a record low. Just 34% of Americans trust the press to report the news fully, accurately, and fairly. So do you remember this, Judge, when this happened? It caused a huge furore.
That's right. Or furor. Yes. Okay.
We were just having that debate.
Yes, we were.
About how you pronounce that word. And well done.
Thank you.
You've moved well to the English language.
You good?
Oh, very good.
You go, Judge. Remember what that was like?
You know, I remember it was lunacy. It was like, you know, they've got Putin, who is this madman who's killing innocents, kids in schools. You got the Taliban. They can put out essays, but you can't have a United States senator putting out an essay because they said that Senator Tom Cotton fudged the facts about Antifa. Now, he didn't fudge the facts about Antifa. If you remember, Congressman Jerry Nadler said Antifa was a myth. There isn't even an Antifa. But what this has done is it's made it clear that the New York Times made the left to totalitarianism and a dictatorship. And if you don't think and speak the way they do, forget the old gray lady. She's dead and buried. They're on to the wokesters with the earrings and whatever else. It's over. And you know, this simple topic was his opinion based on a law and a statute. And they denied that. And they claimed that it put black staffers in danger at the New York Times. Crazy.
And so he got fired, Piers.
I thought this was, at the time, one of the most insane stories I'd ever covered. And reading his account now makes me even more enraged by it. Here you have a bunch of unelected wokies lurking in the bowels of the New York Times newsroom who think they have a greater right to decide what appears in this supposedly impartial newspaper than an elected senator of the United States. And I found that absolutely astonishing that they were able to wield that power. And as a result, this editor then gets fired for having the audacity to allow an elected senator to have an op-ed piece in the paper, bullied into it by a weak management who unfortunately fell foul to this new cult. And I speak from personal experience. I know what it's like when this woke mob pile pressure on their bosses. The correct response is for the bosses to say, we note your concern and we're going to carry on doing what we want to do because we believe in free speech. This was an unbelievable suppression of free speech by the New York Times. Shame on the management. The fact this guy got fired is an absolute disgrace. And the fact that that woke mob in that newsroom felt that's what journalism is, that they can decide what kind of op-eds appear, as you say, when Vladimir Putin and the Taliban have been given space in those pages, a complete disgrace.
There's a Fox News poll basically said majority of registered voters say the media is a threat to democracy. Sorry, that was the New York Times poll. And here's a question. Do you think each of the following is a major threat to democracy? Well, mainstream media hit up 59%.
Yeah.
It's hard to get 59% of people to agree on anything.
Higher than Trump. Isn't that funny? They've been saying that Trump's the biggest threat, and it's ended up being them. I get thousands of text messages for Jesse Watters Primetime. They come in, and we read them, and we don't let them affect the show. We get people that I put on guests, and they say, I never want to see that guest on your show again, mostly about Piers Morgan. And I don't ban Piers Morgan from Primetime yet, and if I did, that would be a corrupt move. So if we had listened to the guy that wrote the op-ed, we would have saved lives. We would have saved billions in dollars of property damage after those riots raged throughout the entire country all summer. So they mobilized the National Guard to get rid of like 50 migrants, but they didn't want to mobilize the Guard to save our cities. They fired the guy that put out an op-ed about how to stop the riots, and then they endorsed a presidential ticket who was bailing out rioters. The people fell for the Russia hoax. Those reporters are still inside the building. But this guy who ran an op-ed is out the door, it doesn't make any sense.
He's pretty mad about it. He was saying basically he said he was treated like trash.
Yeah, one of the things you got to remember about the woke, it's not just the people with the opinions, it's the people who won't stand up to them, and that's often the bosses, whether they're at Disney or at the New York Times or Nike or ESPN. Their staff is more offended by words than a thug murdering a black sheriff in front of a pawn shop. That's the lesson here, is that, again, the importance or the danger of their feelings trumps actual practical suffering of real people. And the solution to all of this is there's got to be a return to some form of blue-collar journalism, because right now all you get is one kind of journalist or one kind of journalist enterprise, and it's this brainwashed, hyper-leftist, hyper-snotty elitist that looks for racism and sexism under every rock. That is their prison, their filter. Therefore, they can't see the violence. They don't see what happened as violence. They see January 6th as violence. One rare day when a bunch of people in red hats acted up is far worse than the dozens of people that were murdered and killed on the streets.
And injured.
Yeah.
Police precincts burned.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether you agree with Cotton or not, actually.
No, it doesn't. I don't agree with the Taliban.
This debate should not be about whether you agree with what he wrote or not. It's about his right as a U.S. senator to express his opinion in the New York Times.
Yeah. I
That's
remember we interviewed him the next morning after that, and he was so bewildered.
Yes.
He was like, wait, what just happened? I thought this was America.
Yeah.
Right. Ahead, Kamala Harris trying to right the ship with another staff shakeup. Yes, it's a Wednesday, so that means there was a staff shakeup. But is it too late? There's a different Democrat in high demand.